Welcome to Balanced But Barely, a podcast for anyone who looks like they have it all together, but internally has about 47 tabs open in their mind. I'm Carla Jean, and each episode we talk real-life stress, anxiety, and self-regulation in a way that actually makes sense. You'll walk away with practical tools to feel calmer, think clear, and create more balance without needing to hide underneath your weighted blanket by 2 p.m. Today's affiliate is Poshmark, the #1 social marketplace where you can buy, sell, and connect with people whose style you love. Go to Poshmark.com and use the promo code CarlaJean143, that's CarlaJean143 to sign up and receive $10 just for you. Welcome back to Balanced But Barely, the podcast for people who are trying to trust the timing of their life while also aggressively checking if the universe has forgotten their order. I'm Carla Jean, and today we're talking about patience. Yes, the infamous P word, which honestly feels offensive sometimes because nobody wants to hear just be patient when you're overwhelmed, burnt out, heartbroken, stuck, grieving, anxious, healing, rebuilding, or staring at your life like, so are we going to evolve or what? And I think a lot of us misunderstand patience. We think patience means waiting quietly, never getting frustrated, trusting perfectly, becoming some calm forest monk who drinks tea and never panic refreshes their email. Meanwhile, most of us are over here trying not to lose our minds because our healing goals, relationships, finances, or purpose aren't moving as fast as we'd hope. So today we're talking about why patience feels so hard, the nervous system and control, trusting yourself during slow seasons, emotional burnout from forcing outcomes, and how patience is less about waiting and more about learning how to stay grounded while life unfolds. Because patience is not passive. It's emotional regulation with trust issues. All right, let's get into it. So this week's Balanced But Barely moment was going to be something totally different than what I'm going to talk about. The recording and the release of this episode was actually delayed because my perfect little grandson began his entry into this world on recording day and then took his sweet time arriving. So here I am recording this episode after one of the most amazing events in my life. So it's not surprising that my Balanced But Barely filter has changed. And I will try to get through this story without crying, but as you can tell, I'm probably not going to manage that. So this week started out really rough. I was faced with heartbreak and disappointment on a scale that I had experienced before, but I thought that I was never going to have to deal with it again. My heart was heavy and my head hurt from all of the different scenarios running through my mind of how I was going to take my next steps. Then my son texted me and said, "We're on our way to the hospital. It's time and the baby's coming." Suddenly, the weight that I was carrying was lifted and I was flooded with pride, joy, and anticipation. Whew, I told you this, I was not going to make it, guys. I knew it. It's okay. The moment that I saw my son and his partner, I teared up, similar to what's happening right now. I hugged them both, told them how proud I was of them, and I took my post as the supportive mother and soon-to-be grandmother. For the next 14 hours, you heard me correctly, the next 14 hours, I was blessed with an overnight stay on a not-so-comfortable hospital couch so I could have a front row seat to the baby's debut. Every time we thought it would be just an hour or more, he decided to prove us wrong. When exhaustion and overwhelm tried to throw me off balance, I would stop and just look around. Oh my gosh, here come more tears. There was my son sitting next to me, and he was so full of anticipation for the arrival of his son. And he was so full of love for his partner. It was just like it was tangible. He was so gentle with her and attentive to her needs. And I was filled with so much pride. And then there was my ex-husband, my son's father, who I've known since I was 15. He was graciously standing post with me on our son's support team. There was my son's partner, the tiniest, sweetest woman, bearing pain and exhaustion to give our family the most priceless gift ever. And her mother never leaving her side, sleeping uncomfortably in a chair so she was able to squeeze her daughter's hand or stroke her hair whenever she needed it. I was so blessed. There was so much love and support in that room, just waiting to welcome this new soul into the world. The heartbreak, disappointment, and confusion I felt earlier in the week had almost completely softened, and my path forward was crystal clear. In that moment, full of gratitude, I knew what my future looked like and felt like. I was no longer teetering off balance, barely making it to the next moment. I was grounded in what was important in life and what my next steps would be. My grandson finally made his way into the arms of everyone there. I could sense the silent vow made between all of us to love, protect, and support him no matter what. That is the vow we all deserve from the people in our lives. That is the vow I deserve from the people in my life. And who knew an 8-pound soul would teach me that in just 14 hours? I know that balanced but barely moment should have come with a grab a tissue box warning. So I'm going to give you that warning now because I can't guarantee that that's not going to happen again throughout this episode. So let's talk about patience, guys. I think one of the hardest things about patience is that it forces us to sit with uncertainty. And if you are an anxious person, you know that uncertainty is one of the things that we hate the most. We want answers, timelines, reassurances, guarantees, signs, confirmation, and preferably immediate results. We want to know when things will get better, if we're making the right choice, whether the work we're doing is actually working, if love is coming, if love is leaving, if healing is happening, if we're falling behind. And honestly, a lot of impatience is just fear wearing running shoes. Because when life feels uncertain, we try to control it. We overthink, overwork, overanalyze, overplan, not because we're crazy, but because uncertainty makes our nervous system feel unsafe. And social media absolutely does not help. I actually got off social media for a while because of this exact thing. It was not just making me feel more disconnected from those around me, but it was revving up my anxiety like crazy. It wasn't until I started my journey as a reseller on Poshmark and then also starting this podcast that I decided to jump back into the social media world. But I vowed that I would be honest and that I would be transparent because I knew that there were hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of other people just like me, feeling anxious with all of the stuff on social media. And I wanted my page to feel real, and not real in the sense of like, oh, if I just did one more thing or 10 more things or 20 more things, I could be just as amazing as this person. No, I wanted to, and I'm hoping that I am being successful at this, but walk alongside you and show you that we are all in this together. But that's me on a rant. So let's get back to it. So social media, because every time you open your phone, someone your age is either buying a house, starting a business, getting married, becoming a wellness influencer, raising chickens, making sourdough from scratch. Like, who are these people? And somehow still finding time to journal at sunrise. I can't with those people. Meanwhile, you're proud of yourself for just answering one email and remembering to drink water that day. And honestly, that still counts, guys. Drinking water still counts. Patience becomes difficult when we turn other people's timelines into measurements of our own worth. But your life is not late just because it looks different. A delayed season is not a failed season, and growth that happens slowly is still growth. So I am not a patient person. I am the person that rushes to the end of the book if the plot is moving too slow for me and I just need to know what happens. I am also the person that jumps onto the internet to find out who wins that big competition instead of watching it in real time because it gets cringy, or I can't sit still and I'm like, forget it. I just need to know what happens. I don't need to know how it happens. I just need to know how it ends. Uh, I know I'm not the only one. Raise your hand out there. I'm assuming I'm seeing several hands being raised if you are that same type of person. I am that person who wants you to get to the point when you are taking 10 minutes to tell me a 5-minute story. I know that sounds horrible, but I am that person. Although I've learned to be more patient, I still think of myself as being impatient, and I'm definitely more patient with others than I am with myself. So it's a work in progress for me for sure. Whenever I find myself in a situation where patience are necessary, I try to reframe the situation into a positive statement. And it sounds silly, but it does work for me. So I say things like, "Thank you for the opportunity to practice my patience." And yes, I that tone and that sarcasm is exactly how I say it in my brain or out loud, but it works. So, "Thank you for the opportunity to practice my patience." Because for me, naming it makes it less frustrating. So, try it if you want. Highly encourage you to try it, especially if you decide to go to Costco on a Saturday afternoon before a big holiday weekend. Good luck. Okay, so let's talk about control because patience and control are constantly fighting for each other emotionally. A lot of us say we want peace, but secretly what we really want is certainty. We want guarantees. We want life to send us a detailed itinerary. I'm laughing here because I'm already imagining one of my good friends going, "Yes, exactly. I would like a detailed itinerary with timelines and timestamps." When things feel out of control, our nervous system starts spiraling. So we micromanage, obsess, emotionally future trip, rehearse conversations, panic plan, and convince ourselves that worrying is somehow productive. Like if we stress hard enough, maybe the universe will release that next chapter early, right? And honestly, sometimes impatience is just grief. Grief that life didn't go the way we expected, grief that healing is taking longer than we thought, grief that we still feel hurt by things we thought we were over. But patience is not pretending things don't hurt. Patience is learning not to abandon yourself while they do hurt. That's the difference. Because forcing yourself through life faster than your nervous system can process it creates exhaustion, not peace. And I think many of us learned that slowing down was unsafe. I know I did. Maybe resting got labeled as lazy. Maybe emotions got dismissed. Maybe survival became your personality. So now when life slows down, your nervous system panics. Stillness feels uncomfortable because stillness leaves room for feelings. But healing, clarity, growth, and emotional regulation often happen slowly. Not because you're failing, because you're not. It's because your nervous system needs safety before it can soften. Go ahead and let's do this together. You're going to place one hand on your chest and take a nice, slow, deep breath in. And now ask yourself, what if this season of my life is teaching me something instead of punishing me? And can I support myself while these things are still unfolding? There is no pressure to answer this perfectly. Just breathe and sit with whatever comes up. Okay, now before we keep going, I want to give you a simple nervous system regulation technique for those moments when anxiety starts convincing you that everything needs to be figured out immediately. Because anxious thoughts love, with a capital L, urgency. Everything suddenly feels like, I need an answer right now, or I have to fix this immediately, or oh my gosh, what if everything falls apart? And my favorite, why is my brain writing disaster fan fiction again? So here's a grounding technique I use when my nervous system starts spiraling. It is my number one go-to advice to all of my close friends whenever they come to me. It's the first thing that I give them, and I'm sure that they will attest to that in the comments so that I don't look like a liar. It's called the 5-4-3-2-1 reset. It is a commonly used technique. I am not the creator of this technique. My therapist taught me this technique, and I've used it a lot, and I pass it down to anyone that I think could use it. I've also taught this technique to children. It is amazing. It helps bring your brain out of this like future tripping and back into the present moment. Pause wherever you are and slowly identify the following things. Look around and name 5 things you can see. And while you're doing this, you're slowing your breath, inhaling with purpose and intention, and exhaling. And with each item or thing that you can see and you name, you're slowing your breath down a little bit slower and a little bit slower. Continuing that slow breath, 5 things that you can see. Moving on to 4 things that you can physically feel. Maybe it's the seat below your bum. It's your sweater on your skin. It's the cool breeze on your through your hair, whatever you are feeling at the moment. And then 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. Let me repeat that. You're going to slow the breath down, and you're going to name 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can physically feel, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And while you're doing it, the entire time you're slowing down your breath, just gently. It's just a nice deep breath into the belly all the way. Let the belly expand. And then exhaling all the way out so that the chest lowers and the belly deflates. You're going to continue naming those things until you feel yourself back in your body, back into the present moment, back into a calm state. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to reset the nervous system. Because anxiety pulls us into the future and mindfulness brings us back to now. And usually right now is safer than the catastrophic scenario your brain has created at 1:12 a.m. while you were trying to sleep. This technique works because it interrupts the stress response and reminds your nervous system, I am here, I am safe, and I can slow down. And honestly, sometimes regulating anxiety isn't about solving your entire life. Sometimes it's just teaching your body that this moment is survivable. Okay, I want to talk about something that I think gets confused all the time, especially by people who are empathetic, nurturing, high-functioning, trauma-informed, emotionally aware, or recovering people pleasers. And that is the difference between patience, tolerance, and accommodating. Because they all look similar on the outside, but emotionally, they are very different experiences. Healthy patience says, I trust timing without abandoning myself. Healthy tolerance says, I can accept differences, discomfort, and imperfections without needing complete control. And healthy accommodating says, I can flex, compromise, and support others while still honoring myself. Those are healthy. They're balanced, grounded, connected. But the unhealthy versions, oh yeah, those get sneaky. Unhealthy patience looks like waiting forever for someone to change, tolerating emotional neglect, abandoning your needs in the name of understanding, and staying in situations that are draining you because you think suffering makes you loyal. A lot of people aren't practicing patience. They're practicing self-abandonment with good branding. Unhealthy tolerance looks like normalizing disrespect, minimizing your hurt, constantly saying, I'm fine, when it's absolutely not fine, and forcing yourself to endure things your nervous system is begging you to address. And eventually, that tolerance turns into resentment, emotional exhaustion, anxiety, burnout, and numbness. Because your body keeps score even when your mouth says, no worries. Meanwhile, your nervous system is in the corner lighting candles and filing complaints. And unhealthy accommodating. Whew. That one is deeply connected to people pleasing. And I will say, I know this from direct experience as a recovering people pleaser. Unhealthy accommodating looks like shape-shifting to keep others comfortable, never expressing your real needs, overextending yourself emotionally, constantly adjusting so nobody gets upset with you, and becoming emotionally available to everyone except yourself. Wow. That's like a to-do checklist for me every day. Like, today have I shapeshifted to make others comfortable? Yep, check. Today have I not expressed my real needs? Absolutely. Check, check. Have I already overextended myself emotionally? Absolutely. Double check. And let's see what the last two, constantly adjusting so nobody gets upset with me. Absolutely. Check. And becoming emotionally available to other people except for myself. Yeah, that's like my daily checklist. And the hard truth, if you constantly accommodate other people without checking in on yourself, eventually you stop knowing who you are. And I want to say this can come and go. Like, you can get really good at healthy accommodating, and then in a blink of an eye, all of a sudden you find yourself being unhealthy again, and you're doing all this unhealthy accommodating. So that is something that I've learned, is that I can do the inner work, do the parts, do all the things, get to a place of that I'm proud of myself for. And then before you know it, like, I stopped paying attention and I've slid right back into this daily checklist of, have I done all these things for other people while completely abandoning myself? That is just really, really important for you to remember as you go through this sort of introspection. Healthy accommodating is flexible, and unhealthy accommodating is fear. That's the difference. Patience should not cost you your peace. Tolerance should not require disrespecting yourself, and accommodating should not mean disappearing emotionally. I think many of us learned that being a good person meant being endlessly available, endlessly understanding, endlessly forgiving, and endlessly flexible. But eventually you realize constant emotional overstretching is not kindness. It's survival. And survival mode will have you confusing exhaustion with love. Real patience includes boundaries. Real tolerance includes self-respect. Real accommodation includes reciprocity. And honestly, that realization has changed everything for me. I had a therapist once tell me that I was too accommodating as I was pouring my heart out to her about how people don't appreciate how much I sacrifice for them or do for them. And I didn't understand why I wasn't getting the same courtesy from these people that I loved and who supposedly loved me. And her response was, well, you're too accommodating. They don't have to reciprocate because they know you will continue to sacrifice and give without anything in return. Now, as an empath and a person whose love language is acts of service, I saw accommodating as an expression of my love and kindness for them. And as someone who desperately wanted to be loved unconditionally in a safe and authentic manner, I often, well, who am I kidding? Always prioritized others' needs, wants, and desires over mine. I always allowed behavior to take place that made me uncomfortable and not aligned with my true beliefs or needs. I believed that I was compromising for the good of the relationship, whether it was a romantic relationship or a friendship. I downplayed the effect that it was having on my spirit and on my well-being. So at that moment, I realized my therapist was right. I was too accommodating. I was a shapeshifter. I molded myself into whatever version of myself that would be accepted in any given situation. And that led to 2 divorces, an estranged sibling, constant tension in romantic relationships, and a nervous system that had gone on strike several times. Add being an empath to this behavior, and you really got a hot freaking mess, guys. As an empath, I see and sense people's energies and moods before they even walk in the room. And honestly, they don't even have to be in the room. Now with Zoom and Teams and all of the thing, FaceTime, like, I don't even have to be in the room. I can just sense it. I catch details in body language and tone that most people would miss. So shape-shifting into a version of myself to align with their mood or likeness is easy for me. So easy, in fact, that as a kiddo and a young adult, I didn't really even know that I was doing it. When you become a different version of yourself with every person, it's very confusing to know what your real identity is. This caused several mini breakdowns, several decades of self-destructive behavior, risky coping mechanisms, and insincere connections with others. My hyper-accommodating behavior was a source of survival as a young child who was a victim of abuse And as an adult, it was attracting people who were willing to let me do all the work so that they could reap all the rewards. I didn't want to be seen as too much by asserting my own needs or my opinions. I just wanted peace and love so badly, I sacrificed myself. The part I sacrificed was my essence, my sparkle, my vulnerability. She was beautiful. And I hid her. I hid her away and disguised her as something else whenever she did come out. She was never allowed to speak her truth or stand her ground. She had learned that to be loved meant to be pleasant, not to fight, and to suffer her sadness and dissatisfaction in silence. Because she knew if she made too much of a fuss, they would be unhappy and they would leave. I spoke up once as a kid. It didn't go very well for me, and I received the message loud and clear that I hadn't spoken up the right way. I hadn't used the right words or with the right emotions. So nobody took me serious or believed how damaged I had become. At 13 years old, I learned that speaking up put a target on my back for people to be mean, neglectful, and dismissive. I honestly think that it was worse than the abuse. At least during the time of the abuse, I had hope that I would be protected once I spoke up. But all I learned was to hide the damage and lock away my sparkle. I learned that other people's feelings, opinions, rights, and reputations were far more important than anything that I had experienced. So for the next 30 years, I tolerated an accommodating behavior that I shouldn't have, behavior that harmed my mental health, my confidence, and my identity. And after a decade of therapy and self-reflection work, I am still not fully healed yet. I am a work in progress. I consider myself a recovering people pleaser that has to make the choice every single day to prioritize my sparkle and well-being. I am much less likely to do the unhealthy versions of accommodating these days, but I do slip up from time to time. I think patience gets romanticized in a really weird way. People talk about it like it's graceful and peaceful all the time, but honestly, sometimes patience looks like crying and still showing up, resting without knowing the outcome, trying again after disappointment, continuing slowly instead of quitting dramatically, or trusting yourself while still feeling uncertain. Patience is not passive. Patience is active trust. And one of the biggest lessons I'm learning in this is you don't need to have complete faith in the future to take the next healthy step. You just need enough trust to keep moving. Some of you are being way too hard on yourselves for not being further along. But look at everything you've survived. The heartbreak, the burnout, the grief, the anxiety, the pressure, the healing that nobody saw. You are not behind. You are rebuilding. And rebuilding takes time. There's also something powerful about learning how to stop rushing your own becoming. Because when we rush relationships, healing, decisions, growth, and success, we often bypass the very lessons trying to strengthen us. And I know that's annoying. I wish healing came with Amazon Prime too, guys. But real growth usually happens quietly. It happens slowly, it happens repeatedly, and it happens patiently. Not through dramatic overnight transformation like you see on a reel on Instagram that actually happened over, decades of time. But it happens through these tiny moments of choosing yourself over and over again. Close your eyes if it feels safe. Take a deep breath in and a slow breath out. And ask yourself, what would change if I trusted that I am not behind in my life? And what if slow growth is still meaningful growth? Go ahead and let yourself sit with that for a second. I want you to remember this. Patience is not giving up on yourself. It's staying connected to yourself while things unfold. You are allowed to grow slowly, change gradually, heal imperfectly, rest without earning it, and trust your process even when it looks different than everyone else's. Please hear me when I say this. Your life is not behind. Your nervous system may just need more gentleness than pressure right now. And that's okay. You do not need to rush your becoming. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a few resources if this episode really resonated with you and you want more support about patience, anxiety, mindfulness, and nervous system regulation. A few books that have helped me personally are The Mountain Is You, The Body Keeps the Score, and Self-Compassion. And for free mindfulness and meditation support that I actually use on a regular basis is the Insight Timer app. All right, that's what I have for you today. If this episode resonated with you, go ahead and subscribe to Balanced But Barely so you don't miss what's next. And if you know someone who's currently trying to force their entire life to happen faster, send this episode to them, because burnout is not a personality trait. You can connect with me on Instagram at _Carla Jean 143. And for support, mindfulness tools, resources, and the show notes, head over to carlajean143.com. You can also follow me on YouTube at Carla Jean 143. Until next time, take a deep breath, drink some water, and stop trying to have your entire future figured out by Thursday. Remember, slow progress is still progress. This is Balanced But Barely with Carla Jean Lundgren, and we're figuring it out together.